So the point is not to rely on God for what we cannot understand, but to appreciate the exceptionality of life and take it as a sign that points toward a greater orchestrator. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. We're in chapter 2, section 4, natural argument. Again, I'm not trying to use science to prove that God exists. I'm trying to show the similarity between accepting a scientific theory and accepting a religious and Islamic vision of the world. Because for me, the two mental processes are the same. But you can have arguments that might not prove that God exists, but they can direct you toward a theist view of the world. And you have different arguments. One of such argument is the natural argument. So in this section, I will enumerate some of the scientific arguments that, as a scientist, I found particularly appealing to justify the existence of God, or more generally, of a higher entity that engendered and governs the world. So here, I'm not trying to prove God directly, but I'm saying that these scientific evidence, you can take this scientific evidence to justify a religious view of the world. Not specifically Islamic, but religious. As mentioned in the introduction a few weeks ago, my goal is not to prove God by means of an absolute, irrefutable argument, but simply to show that believing in Him, in God, is scientifically justifiable. Among the several types of arguments that I have seen or that have been used over the centuries to justify the existence of God, the one that I adhere most, the one that I like the most, because it's really subjective, everyone is attuned to specific arguments, is the so-called natural argument. The natural argument consists in showing that the singularity and precision of the natural world points to the existence of a higher power that orchestrates it. The goal again is not to rely on God for whatever I cannot understand, but to appreciate the world's exceptionality, and then it's up to each one of us to decide which explanation, a God or just randomness, is better suited to explain this exceptionality. So the first example, or the first, argument I would take within that natural argument, the first example within the natural argument is the complexification of life. So to start with the most obvious example that I found the most obvious, I first want to talk about the exceptionality of life. Life in itself is exceptional in the sense that scientists still wonder how life could possibly emerge from inanimate matter. Indeed, a living organism is like an ensemble of precisely interlocked pieces of machinery that work together not only to sustain itself, but to multiply and complexify itself. However, from experience, from a scientific experience, everything else, besides living organisms, tend to a greater disorder, like the entropy increases. So in school I was taught that disorder called entropy can only spontaneously increase, meaning it becomes more and more disorder. Like you take an egg, you throw it on the ground, it will break apart. The white and the yellow will mix. Now try to separate again the white and the yellow. It's hard. So everything tends to reach the lowest energy level, the most stable configuration. For example, if marbles are left to roll on the ground, they are subject to the Earth's gravitation. They will roll to the lowest point available, which lower the potential energy and provide stability. Like they'll go down the drain and they'll get stuck in the drain because it's the lowest point they can reach. Speaking of energy, I'll also learn that nothing is lost, nothing is created, but that energy is only transmitted and transformed in one form to another form, like from light energy to electricity, for example, or chemical energy. I would argue that above all, energy is dissipated through friction and radiation. Why? Because you can assume that everything is radiation. It is remarkable that biological life in itself goes against this law, or at first hand seems to go against this law of disorder, because each organism evolves and develops, it complexifies. It's like it takes elements, rearranges elements, and separate them in specific configuration. The entropy decreases. In some ways, life challenges this process of homogenization. Indeed, the organism's reproduction, metabolism, and physical development tend to complexify and segregate rather than simplify and randomize. Life is therefore exceptional in and of itself. By exceptional here I mean a phenomenon that goes against expectations based on common logic, a phenomenon whose probability of occurrence is low, even insignificant. So one must keep in mind that the aforementioned complexification is only made possible by the sun. All forms of earthly life, past and present, are directly or indirectly connected to the use of solar radiations, like the greenhouse effect, which is the trapping of solar radiations by our atmosphere. That greenhouse effect provides living creatures with an average temperature that allows for liquid water. This liquid water enables vegetal life via photosynthesis. Because you have water, plant can use sunlight and convert it into chemical energy. But these proteins that do the job are within a watery environment. The water is like the medium through which the proteins interact. Even though the proteins are within cell membranes, you still need water to maintain the whole cell structures. So the sun is thus the primary source of energy for the plants, which in turn provides food for animals. So up to this day, humans are burning fossil fuels like coal, petrol, gas, that were once living organisms nurtured by the sun. The Earth only intercepts a tiny portion of these radiations, the radiations that are emitted by the sun. So to take a break, here I'm comparing what's happening everywhere in the universe or even on Earth. You see that things degrade, that things randomize. To give an example, maybe an explicit example, if I take all the air molecules within that room and I put them close to each other in one corner and then I let it go. So I put all the molecules in one corner, the rest is empty, vacuum, and I let them go. They'll spread apart and they'll fill up the whole room and randomize. So I start with a low entropy to high entropy. From something that is well organized, they're all packed like in a corner, to something that is less organized. Now they fill up the whole room and they move around. So everything tends to go to higher entropy. Life seems to go against this rule. Why? Because when you grow up, you don't randomize, you complexify. That complexification is only possible if you use energy in the first place. And ultimately that energy comes from the sun. You burn food within your body. That food, whether it's vegetables or animals, come from plants that use the sun to grow. So you can imagine the sun in our scale like an unlimited source of energy, like a stream or like a river. Like you can imagine the radiations as the water that flows in a river, and you're just taking a small portion of it. So you can imagine the sun shining light all around. It's like a river with a flowing water, and the earth just takes a small portion of that radiations. So it's like if you take a cup and you just take a little bit of water from that stream. So it is as if the solar radiations are a stream of water and the earth is a tiny cup with which one collects some of the water. Humans are thus bathing in an inexhaustible flux of energy, again within a human scale in space and time. By utilizing this flow of solar energy, life corresponds to an exceptionally intricate use of this energy that is so far unique in the universe. Like so far, life is unique in the universe. Life thus represents an apparent exception to this law of homogenization because of the unusual way homogenization takes place. Just like the mill, which uses a small portion of the river to turn its wheel. The flow of water represents here the flow of solar energy, and the spinning gears of the mill correspond to life on Earth. So based on the current scientific comprehension of the world, the probability of finding such gears by chance borders more on science fiction than genuine science. But like other hypotheses that the human mind can formulate, it deserves to be evaluated. I refer here to the theory of evolution that will be discussed in the appendix at the end of the book. The argument I make is that even from an evolutionist point of view, human existence is still exceptional. Like human existence finds its origin in a combination of circumstances that defy all explanations. It is thus natural to wonder whether humans are the effect of a combination of mere random circumstances or the result of a divine orchestration. Even if you think of divine orchestrations through methods of evolution, that's all right. But to think that it's all random without divine intervention, that's really hard. Scientifically, that's really hard to believe. So the point is not to rely on God for what we cannot understand, but to appreciate the exceptionality of life and take it as a sign that points toward a greater orchestrator. جزاك الله خيرا والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.